really been a sore spot for the New England Patriots, but it does seem like they may have hit something here with Kyle Williams, as you referenced, the third-round pick out of Washington State. I was at Foxborough for the first 2 days of training camp, and he was one of the guys that really stood out. And one of the things that the Patriots have been sorely lacking, specifically last season, is explosive plays. They were last in the NFL in explosive pass play rate last season. It's something that they really need to improve on, and this is a guy that I do think can change the tides here. Of course, all eyes have been on Stephon Diggs, but Kyle Williams, a couple plays in particular. One, he caught a pass from Drake May out of the flat, and you could just see his burst after the catch. That was something talked about when he was drafted, and you're starting to see that breakaway speed already showing here over the first couple of days at camp. But the number one play that I saw over the first 2 days of Patriots camp was he ran a comeback route against Christian Gonzalez, the all-pro cornerback, arguably the best player on that defense, one of the best young corners in the NFL. Just straight up beat him, muscled down the football for the reception. Again, not pads, so we got to throw him a little caveat out there. The contact isn't necessarily there, but this is one of those guys to keep an eye on for the New England Patriots, but also for your fantasy football drafts as well. This is a rookie that could pop during the season.
I like the one-handed snag on the sideline that we showed there in slow motion as well. Hey, look, you made the point it's not pads, but you got to look good in shorts and T-shirts as well. It can't just be in pads. One's got to lead to the other. All right, let's stay in the AFC. Changes at running back have arrived in Pittsburgh. No more Najee Harris. But talk about Caleb Johnson out of Iowa.
Yeah, I think we look at, okay, Najee Harris is now gone. He's a Los Angeles Charger. Now it's Jaylen Warren's time, right? He's the one that's going to step up as the veteran in that backfield. But hold on a second. I think Caleb Johnson, the third-round pick out of Iowa, is someone that you really have to pay attention to. 1,500 yards rushing last season for the Hawkeyes, 23 total touchdowns. And for me, he fits what Arthur Smith wants to do in that running game with the outside zone. Ran that a lot at Iowa. And again, he is someone who I think could really earn some early down work. You just look at the physical comparisons between Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren. Johnson, 6'1", around 225. Warren, a little bit smaller, 5'8", 215. I wonder if Caleb Johnson is just kind of going to adopt that Najee Harris role. And Warren, while he may warrant a few more snaps as a pure runner, but maybe he continues as that passing down, third down, receiving back that he's been accustomed to over the last few years. The big question for me, for Johnson, will be how does it look when the pads come on? How does he look as a pass blocker? That's something that there was a little bit of a question at college. Didn't really need to do it too much, running primarily at Iowa. How does he work in pass protection? And if he's able to thrive in that role, because if you haven't noticed, the Pittsburgh Steelers have a 40-year-old quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. They need to keep him upright. If Johnson can thrive in that role, that'll warrant him even more snaps.
I will say, we just showed the graphic of the Steelers depth chart there at running back. A lot of veterans in that room he can learn from, and if he rises above those guys, that's saying something for the rookie. All right, and there it is. Yeah, it's good producer work. Here we go. Yeah, look, right in the middle there, Kenneth Gainwell, Cordarrelle Patterson, Trey Sermon, and of course Jaylen Warren, and Caleb Johnson certainly in the mix. We'll see if he can again rise above some of these veterans. Let's continue to stay in the conference here in the AFC. In New York is where we find Mason Taylor. Certainly has the NFL pedigree on his side, with both his dad and uncle being Hall of Famers. Is the second-round pick out of LSU poised for a big rookie year?
Yeah, not too bad with the Pro Football Hall of Fame bloodline, right? But I think that this is someone that you really have to pay attention to. I think when we look at the New York Jets, there was a lot of change this offseason. New quarterback, new head coach, and even in the offense, you saw Devontae Adams leave, and that's probably one of the bigger questions. But to me, I look at a guy like Tyler Conklin, who left in free agency for the Los Angeles Chargers. He averaged 82 targets per season over the last 3 seasons, and I think a lot of that, if not all of it, is going to go to Mason Taylor. You see the tight end depth chart here for the New York Jets. Not a lot there. Jeremy Ruckert doesn't scare me as someone who's going to take over for Mason Taylor. This is a guy that was a second-round pick, one of the top tight ends in this class. And I just see the opportunity here, not just for the 82 on average the last 3 seasons that Conklin is leaving, but I referenced Devontae Adams. I don't know who the number 2 wide receiver is going to be for the New York Jets. Of course, Garrett Wilson just got paid. He's the tried and true clear number 1. But after that, you look at that wide receiver depth chart for the New York Jets, there's not could not only be the #1 option at the tight end spot, but this is a guy that could rival for the second most targets on this offense for Justin Fields outside of Garrett Wilson. Of course, Breece Hall could factor into that as well out of the backfield. But I look at a guy like Mason Taylor, and if he is able to thrive as a pass catcher, there's a lot of opportunities there, a lot of targets for him. And we've seen Justin Fields really favor the tight end. You go to Pat Freiermuth last season with the Pittsburgh Steelers, go back to his days with the Chicago Bears and Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet even led the team in receiving yards, the Chicago Bears, a couple of years there with Justin Fields. So he throws to the tight ends, and the opportunity is there for Taylor to take over.
This next one with the Chargers, it really caught my attention when I saw it when we were prepping for this, because the Chargers had an impact rookie at wide receiver last year with Ladd McConkey. Can they do it again with Trey Harris?
I'm going to throw a terrible pun out there. They're going to hope that lightning strikes twice in the second round at the wide receiver position. Ladd McConkey was the second-round pick last season. Awesome, unbelievable rookie year, over 1,000 yards. Was just an unbelievable addition for them, for Justin Herbert. But you saw it last year, specifically in that playoff loss. While McConkey went off, he had like 190 yards receiving in that loss. It was kind of overshadowed by the 4 interceptions for Justin Herbert. But you look at the next most prolific pass catcher in that game, it was tight end Will Disley, who had 2 catches for 16 yards on 5 targets. This offense desperately needs a #2 option, and you see here Trey Harris, what he was able to do at the collegiate level last season, 182 yards, basically 129 yards receiving per game. You're talking about history he was making in the SEC, mind you. So I think that this is someone that you really have to pay attention to. He's someone that can kind of be that outside presence while McConkey works over the middle. You were hoping that maybe it could have been Mike Williams who came back in free agency, but he has since retired. Quentin Johnston hasn't worked out as a first-round pick over the last few years. So Trey Harris could, very similar to when we were talking about Taylor, is a young guy that could command a lot of targets early in his career because of the lack of presence elsewhere on the roster. So Harris is someone who has an elite quarterback, a #1 wideout that he's playing opposite of Ladd McConkey. There's a lot of opportunity there for him to swallow a lot of those targets.
Everyone's favorite story during the draft was, where would Shedeur Sanders land? He lands in Cleveland, but he was not the only rookie that they drafted. No, Dylan Gabriel, part of that draft class as well. And there's the quarterback room: Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, plenty of NFL experience. Then it's the 2 rookies. But what do you think about Dylan Gabriel, or what do you believe may be able to separate him from this crowd?
Yeah, he is my underrated quarterback to watch. And you referenced it there, right? Shedeur Sanders was the story of the 2025 NFL draft because of his free fall. But let's not forget that there was a quarterback taken ahead of Shedeur Sanders on this roster in Dylan Gabriel. They chose Dylan Gabriel over Shedeur Sanders in the 3rd round. They ended up just taking Shedeur Sanders later on in the 5th. But when they had a decision to make at the quarterback spot on day 2 of the NFL draft, they chose Dylan Gabriel. That has to count for something, right? As much as we're tantalized by the potential of Shedeur Sanders, it doesn't seem like the Cleveland Browns are. Yes, they took him, but they look at a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who's very experienced, 24 years old, an older quarterback prospect. But we saw a guy like Bo Nix last year at the same school be an older prospect and still thrive. So this is kind of where the Cleveland Browns need to look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves what they want to do and what do they want to accomplish in 2025. We saw it there, the list of quarterbacks. It feels like Joe Flacco could have the inside track to start week 1 this season just because he has the experience at 40 years old. But I don't know what that does for the Cleveland Browns over the long term. Yes, it may help you be competitive earlier on in the season. Maybe it saves some jobs. But if you are looking for the big picture, if you are looking for some quarterback that could help you over the foreseeable future, at least try to see if there's someone on this roster. To me, the first guy that I would look at is Dylan Gabriel, because I don't really know what Joe Flacco really means to you in 2026 and in 2027. If Dylan Gabriel builds that foundation early on, to me, that is much more valuable than a couple of wins and losses in September. So I wouldn't sleep on Dylan Gabriel getting a nod here at some point this season. I think that, frankly, all of these quarterbacks might see time on the field this season, but Dylan Gabriel is one that we should be paying attention to.
It's one of the fun parts, one of the best parts about this time of year in training camp, seeing which rookie Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa with the Steelers in each of his first 6 seasons there in D.C. CBS Sports NFL writer Tyler Sullivan joining us now. And Tyler, I guess McLaurin showing up is a good sign, but him going right to the PUP list, is that a signal that he's holding in?
I would say so. And yes, of course, it's a positive sign to see your star wide receiver when you're in the midst of a contract dispute show up to the facility. But we kind of have to unpack this a little bit, right? Because there's a difference between showing up and putting the pads on and being ready to go as the regular Terry McLaurin. And then there's, as you indicated, the possibility of a hold-in. Now, what Terry McLaurin is doing by coming into the facility, he's avoiding fines, right? So when we talk about these hold-ins, the whole point of it is that you're basically still holding out, but you're just not getting fined. And up to this point, Terry McLaurin had already been fined around $200,000, 50 grand per day that you've been missing practice. So if you're looking at it from the financial perspective, this makes sense to show up to the facility. And they said today on Sunday that he's still dealing with that ankle injury that he dealt with at the end of last season. Could that just be part of the hold-in? We'll have to see how all of this develops. But at the very least, if you want to look at this optimistically, it's encouraging that the wide receiver is in the building. He is at least in front of the front office when we're talking about possibly locking him in for the foreseeable future with a new contract. So the fact that he is at the team facility, even though it's on the PUP list, even though it's probably a hold-in, at least you can look at that with a bit of encouragement, a bit of optimism.
Tyler, we've seen some huge paydays for wide receivers across the NFL these last couple of years. Does Terry deserve to be amongst those highest paid in the league, near a guy like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, or CeeDee Lamb?
I think he's going to look for it. I mean, I don't really hate on any wide receiver, or any player for that matter, trying to get the most amount of money possible, but I don't think that he's going to be in that Jamar Chase realm. That